When you think about talent and development and you think about how do people improve, there's some fundamental things that we look at and we need to look at from a standpoint of really having a conscientious effort to what does it take to build talent? There's a huge industry called talent acquisition. I'm not against talent acquisition. Talent acquisition goes out and tries to find you the top talent, whether it's an external or an internal resource. Yet the one thing that we don't do as much as we could is think about, let's not go look for top talent. Let's build top talent. Now, some might argue that point. Oh, no, we have internal structures. We do that all the time. And it goes back to a couple different things. And I want to give you a frame of reference. It doesn't mean it applies to everybody, but I go back to one fundamental thing. How often are people practicing? So I just watched a video by Angela Duckworth, who wrote a book called Grit. Grit is guts, resilience, intensity, tenacity. And it's really grit as a definition is passion and perseverance over time. I want to share with you, I have worked for many years before I really morphed into a coaching company, with sales teams. And I cannot tell you of one organization that says we practice every week. And I want to share with you a very quick story. I was in front of a CEO group and I had a gentleman who raised his hand. He said, look, I get the whole, perspective on coaching and effort and practicing. He goes, but what if you have a really good sales team? I said, awesome. Would you mind if I gave you a scenario? He said, sure. I said, what do you do? And he said, industrial leasing. I said, well, what's a big deal in your business? He said, $3 to $5 million. I said, that's like a really big deal. He said, huge. I said, great. If you have a deal coming up and let's say you're going to do the closing presentation, let's just use that as an example. He said, okay. I said, your competition is practicing. They're role playing. They're going through Q&A. They're practicing buyer-driven questions. So they come off confident, concise, precise, specific, value-driven. And your people just show up. No practice. How are you feeling right now? Honestly. And he sat there and he goes, The guy next to him elbows him and he goes, I think you just answered his question. And we all started laughing. We tend to push this thing to the side called effort. Now, at Progress Coaching, we have been talking about 3 levels of change for 31 years. Effort, progress, and results. Effort. If someone is producing effort, do not give constructive feedback if you can help it. We make so many fundamental mistakes. We also do something called breed quitting. When someone interjects and goes, no, that's not very good. Here's what I would do. You've just discounted, you just dismissed the person. That's why with salespeople, they need to be taught how to coach each other. So when you think about the power of effort and cadence of practice, and you just reward people and say, wow, love your effort, great job, keep it going. They'll move into the second level of change, and that is something called progress. Now, the progress principle, which is a study done at Harvard, said people are at their most motivated state when they're progressing and improving specific to their job. 76% of the people said that. It was not reward, recognition, and money. Yet, what do we try to do when we acquire or retain our top talent? We throw money at them. People can improve, but it starts with effort. Let me give you another perspective. I remember years ago, and I've coached boys volleyball on and off for about 31 years, and I had a dad come up to me at a tournament, and he said, oh my gosh, the kids are just playing terrible. And I said, yeah, it's a little choppy right now. It's the start of the season. It's our first tournament. I don't know how you stay so calm. I would be just screaming at them. Why are you not yelling at them? I said, well, 1, they're not my kids. Number 2, we will be a winning team by the end of the year. He said, how can you say that? I said, because I make practice enjoyable. I produce recognition. I acknowledge. I reward effort. Kids will come to practice. They will leave the practice with a smile on their face. Now, that does not mean I do not challenge them. Yet, practice will take care of the tournaments. He said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, I've done it for a long time. I promise you, by the end of the year, we won the Wisconsin Region Championship. Not because I'm a great coach. It's because you have to trust the process. The process is when you first have effort rewarded, progress pinpointed, when you have effort and progress through the foundation of cadence of practice, you will go into a stratosphere of predictable and sustainable results. Let me give you another context. I've asked this question of two different segments in the workplace for the last 31 years. I've never, ever had anyone answer these questions correctly. When you get a competitor price objection, Mr. and Mrs. Salesperson, in that moment, what do you say and do? They always want to narrate. Well, what I try to do is leverage the relationship. Bull! It's a load of crap. You're not going to look at someone and say, well, Bob, I know that price is important to you, but I'd like to talk about our relationship. You're not going to do that. So if you don't have what we call the tiers of learning in a cadence of progression understood, knowledge, do they know what to do? Skill, have they practiced it? Behavioral, confidence comes through two things: practice and positive reinforcement. The same thing when I ask customer service people, when you get an angry customer, what do you do and specifically say in that moment? Well, the thing I really try to do is remain calm. It's not an answer to the question. I'm asking you, what do you say? And what I'm pinpointing, everybody, is if they don't have the knowledge, skill, how do you practice something you haven't been taught how to do? That's why this whole shooting from the hip gets people in a lot of trouble. I'll give you another example. I had a salesperson who was number 2 in a company. Number 2. I was out in Las Vegas as a recreational boating company. He could not practice. He couldn't get through a role play. Number 2 in the company. Oh, this guy's great. And afterwards, I said to one of the regional sales managers, I said, boy, that was really weird. He goes, what? I go, how is he number 2? He couldn't even go through a fundamental role play. What we later found out is he would go into dealers and say, if you don't buy my products, I'm going to go across the street and compete with you. So on paper, oh, he's a phenomenal salesperson. Here was the great part of the story. The guy who really took practice, produced effort, was an ex-technician working on boats. Took over his territory 6 months later because the gentleman left the company. 6 months later, quadrupled his territory. Think about that. On paper, the first guy was fantastic. He was not. Results are not a predictor of subject matter expertise. Results are not a predictor of great skill set. Sometimes people get lucky. Maybe they have the right clients, or maybe they just were on fire one day and kind of turned sideways afterwards. So remember, when you are developing talent, start within first. Grow it every single day. It's great for succession planning. It builds trust, and it also retains talent while they become top talent. Let me know your thoughts.